All right, we are live. So welcome everybody to our first workshop Wednesday of Design Month 2018. So we have a whole crew with us today. So a lot of new faces from last year, a lot of old faces, which is mostly just me and Adam. But we'll go around and intro the whole team for all the new folks. So Adam, if you want to kick us off.
Okay, we want to jump to the next slide. But yep. Yeah, so Adam Moorhead, otherwise known as AdRock in the community. I think most of you know me, but any newbies that don't know me, I manage what we now call at Topcoder our digital practice. So how we do design, development, and data science. Excited to be here and excited about Design Month. So looking forward to everything that we're going to show you this month.
All right. I am Trevor Gehring. So I am our Topcoder digital design lead. So I'm kind of running our design practice within Topcoder. So definitely working quite a bit more with the community, working with customers on projects. So you'll definitely see a lot more of me around on the daily. And then we have Isa. Are you there, Isa?
Okay, Vignesh.
Awesome. Vignesh.
Hey guys, this is Vignesh, also known as TVix. So all guys maybe know me because I have been participating in Topcoder design competitions. Now started working for Topcoder full time as a design architect. That's it.
All right. And then we have a design member and co-pilot with us today, Alex Chekspir.
We'll Hi everyone.
So we'll do a good Q&A and kind of intro session with Chekspir in a little bit.
Okay. Hi everyone. This is Alexander, Chekspir in the community. I'm a designer, so maybe many of you will see me competing by your side in future challenges. I'm also your copilot in these days, so it's really nice for me to be here and help you in anything you need.
Nice. All right.
Okay, should one of us share our screen, or do you have control over that, Trevor?
Yep, I'm going to share just a sec.
Okay. There we go.
All right.
So hopefully Isa will join us back here in a little bit. His handle is High Def, and he is new to the design team here, working as a design challenge architect. So everyone, if you happen to see him in the forums and see him running challenges with our co-pilots, please welcome Isa. Okay, Trevor, you want me to get going, or?
Yep, I think we'll keep running.
Okay, so yeah, everyone, welcome. So overview on Topcoder design. So many of you long-term Topcoder members also know us as Topcoder Studio. We now refer to ourselves as Topcoder Design. So welcome you to Topcoder Design, and we are a global community focused on solving real-world user experience and user interface design problems through crowdsourcing. So what that means is Trevor and I, we spend a lot of time really working to provide design direction and feedback around user experience and user interface designs for you as designers as part of our community and the enterprise type problems our customers are bringing to us. So as a Topcoder designer, you have many opportunities to compete in all types of design challenges to win prize money, of course, to get better with your skills and to learn latest technologies that our customers are bringing to us, like cognitive and AI and blockchain and IoT, and of course, all the latest and greatest within what's the kind of design patterns and things that you should be learning around Apple and Android and things like that. So Topcoder, we have top name customers that come to us looking for your creativity. So welcome to Topcoder Design, and of course, welcome to Design Month. So we are a challenge-based process. So what that means is we run competitions, you submit your designs, and then we have a process of selection of prizes throughout the challenges, but also a first place, a second place, and a third place within most of our challenges. So the idea is that you submit your design idea for critique by our customers, and of course from ourselves and our co-pilots. And through this process, we are focused on design education, open design thinking, and innovation through rapid design. One of the things you'll hear a lot about from Topcoder and from what Trevor and myself and Isa and Vignesh will be talking about is rapid design. We've really kind of honed in on something that we call rapid user experience design challenges, live user experience design challenges. And if you happen to ever visit any of our workshops while we are in Indonesia or India or future countries here this year, we promote this rapid design around creating new concepts and being innovative in the design process. So you have many opportunities to specialize within our community. We're going to cover that here shortly within information architecture, UI, UX design, and of course, front-end design and prototyping. So welcome, and excited to get things going here. Trevor, you want to take this?
Yeah. So we have our design practice is kind of split into three main sections. And so we have information architecture, UI design, and UI prototype. So information architecture is all about UX and primarily wireframes. So it's about, wireframe challenges, kind of working through, a customer project at a super high level and starting to break down, that application or website, and starting to work through the requirements by showing, interactions, how the user might move through the experience. So it's really starting to establish, the overall user experience before we get into, high fidelity design. So primarily, these take the shape of wireframes, and primarily we're using Acture for those challenges, although we tend to keep those fairly open to any software that, kind of you feel comfortable with. So we've traditionally done, Photoshop or Sketch, Adobe XD. So it's pretty open as far as how we produce those wireframes. The second main section of kind of the design of Topcoder design are UI designs. So these are producing, high fidelity, pixel perfect UI designs of the customer's application or website. A lot of times the wireframes that we produce in a information architecture challenge become kind of inputs into these UI design challenges as well. So this is all about designing out, the final experience for a customer, what will ultimately be developed, what will ultimately become kind of the end experience. And so we are primarily using tools, for these challenges, such as, Photoshop, Sketch. This year, we're starting to allow and starting to push Adobe XD a little bit more. So we'll definitely have some additional information around that later. So primarily kind of focus on UI design, and then the third track is UI prototype. And so this is where we start to take those high fidelity UI designs and start to actually produce the clickable, front end code. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And we kind of split these prototypes into two sections. So are we creating something that's more of a demo? So is the client more or less kind of using it to for a presentation or to get additional customer buy-in, or is this actually going on as a final production where it will eventually be linked into APIs, backends, etc. So we kind of split those into two ways that we would approach a UI prototype, but the kind of process and the end result is still the same. All right. So jumping into an actual design challenge itself. So what is important to a design challenge? So every design challenge is different. So they all have different requirements, different objectives, different outcomes. So this is largely based on the client and the overall project itself. And so it's important to kind of keep that in mind while you're approaching a new design challenge. And there tends to be a few important things to kind of identify or look for in any design challenge that you're approaching. The first one is just understanding the problem. So what are we actually trying to solve in the design challenge? So most of the time, or at least all the time, this should be clearly outlined within the first paragraph or the intro of an actual design challenge. So this should be extremely clear. If it's not clear, there's definitely resources to reach out to make sure that you understand the underlying problem. The next big thing to look for in a design challenge are just what are the requirements. So what are the actual specific things that I'm producing? So this could be specific requirements around specific screens or specific functionality. So an example might be, does this application need to include, a chat bot or some kind of a dashboard? So those are, very specific requirements. And usually those are coming directly from the client themselves. So it's important to kind of understand what those requirements are. And then ultimately, what is the best way to actually design and produce those. The third big thing to keep in mind in any design challenge is that every challenge includes a forum. And this is a specific forum specifically for that design challenge. So that forum will include everyone that's registered for that challenge. It will include the challenge architect, so someone like me or Adam or Isa or Vignesh, who is ever kind of running the challenge from our team will be in that forum as well. And then also our copilot. So, someone like Chekspir, might be in that forum as well. So this is a great opportunity for you to just ask questions. So if something doesn't make sense on the spec, or you have a question about, just process. So, what are checkpoints due? How do I submit for checkpoints? Those sorts of questions can all be answered in the forums. So it really becomes kind of a great place to ask, anything small or big related to a specific challenge. And then the last thing to keep in mind is just what type of a challenge is this? So where it may be a UI design challenge, we tend to kind of think of these challenges in kind of two big buckets. So we think of them as more production oriented challenges versus more concept driven. And so let me jump to I guess it's coming up. But so we tend to kind of think of those as production versus concepts. And those kind of require specific kind of ways of thinking about the challenge. So production is usually much more, very specific in following clear requirements. Concepts or exploration challenges are much more open, where we're looking for, new ideas. You have a little bit more creative freedom in what you're actually designing. All right, so getting into how to read a spec.
I can take this.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when jumping into the challenge and looking at the spec, obviously you're going to want to see what interests you about the challenge. Is it something that you want to tackle? Is it a design problem that you think that is easy to jump in? The key thing here is to look at how we've laid out the challenge, and have we missed anything? But the key thing here is looking at what is the problem statement. So Trevor and I like to try and keep that as a simple statement up front. So what's the design problem we're looking to solve, and share that as a quick intro, so you understand that if it's something that you're interested in doing. After that is what are we designing for? So obviously a lot of our customers ask for responsive and also ask for mobile. So in the challenge to say, is this including responsive for desktop and phone and tablet, or is it just desktop and phone, or is it just desktop? And then we also have many challenges that are just for desktop, just for mobile. So it's just very clear to go in and look and say, what is the requirements around the form factors that we're looking to design for? The next is branding. Are there any branding requirements? So obviously customers are very sensitive to their brand, and they want to make sure that you understand what their brand entails, and that you're treating their brand appropriately in the challenges. So it's really important to look at any of the design guidance, branding guidance that we provide, and ask questions around the branding. One of the questions or issues with crowdsourcing is, do designers around the world understand my brand, since they haven't really worked with it in the past? So it's really important to ask questions around the brand. So as you're submitting your design, your thought process and your innovations and your concepts are not lost because you happen to misunderstand the brand. Next is, what are the specific screens or features that you're designing? So we like to call out, especially in a Rux challenge, and we also do this in many of our challenges, but list out the specific screens that we're looking for you to explore, or looking for, or features in those screens to help provide that guidance. So we may list out screen 1, screen 2, screen 3. Screen 1 may be dashboard, screen 2 may be profile, screen 3 may be a deep dive into the dashboard and things like that. So just looking at what those screens are and asking questions around those screens. What are the requirements around that? And then of course the timeline. So obviously this is a competition, so the timeline matters. We want to make sure that if you're committing to our challenge, that we're also committing back to you that we're going to provide some feedback and meet those the challenge deadlines. So when is the checkpoint? The challenge starts, and in the middle of the challenge we have a checkpoint. So look to see when the checkpoint is due. This is critical because in order to submit to the final round of a Topcoder design challenge, you need to submit to the checkpoint. So checking the timeline for the checkpoint, checking when the final deadline is due. So do you have any conflicts? Can you make that deadline? If the deadline happens to be extended by 24 or 48 hours, are you still available to continue the challenge and submit your final designs? So overall, just thinking, do you have time to work on this challenge, or is there another challenge that maybe fit your availability? So these are the key things that we think when reading a spec. Obviously open to everyone's feedback if there's other things that you think may be more important. So please definitely let Trevor, myself, Vignesh, and Isan know. So stages of a design challenge, I just kind of mentioned this, but to illustrate it, a challenge starts off with registration. So this is you signing up and saying, hey, I'm interested in this challenge, reading the spec. And then in the middle of the challenge, we have a checkpoint. Typically, this is 3 or 4 or 5 days after the challenge has started. And what we're asking for you to do is to submit your initial work. In a challenge, we typically call out how many screens or what screens we're interested in seeing at the checkpoint. So it's very important to read this and look at this, because if we've asked for 3 screens and you submit 1 screen, obviously the customer will be discouraged by this. If we've asked for specific things in the checkpoint and you've done all the other things, then of course this is a distraction to the customer. So one of the reasons at the checkpoint we actually call out these are the things we're looking for is because the customer is looking to review those items and provide you with feedback so you understand if it's important to move on to the next round or not. At the end of the checkpoint, we provide feedback to you and we select what we call our top 5, or depending on how many checkpoint prizes we're awarding in that specific challenge. Typically it is 5. We reward a prize to the top 5, and we're asking you to take the feedback, improve your designs throughout the final part of the design challenge. Update, refine, improve your designs so you can submit your updated vision and updated designs by the end of the challenge. Once the challenge concludes, all the submissions are in, the customer reviews those designs and they select the first place, a second place, and a third place. And we have what we call final fixes. So this is typically small edits or tweaks. It may be a merging of a couple ideas, but it is not new requirements. It is not new pages. The idea is that it's all within scope and, of course, improving your design so the customer sees what they're looking for by the end of the challenge. So these are the stages of a design challenge. If you have any questions about these, please do, as I said before, let us know. We're always here to clarify.
All right. Yeah, sure. So what do customers care about? So this is extremely important, and it's definitely good to kind of understand or put yourself in the customer's shoes a little bit. So these sorts of perspectives or things that our customer is looking for is ultimately more or less driven by their requirements, by what is outlined in the actual challenge itself. So this is mostly what are they actually expecting from the challenge itself. So do the designs solve my problem? So this is again making sure you're understanding the problem statement of the challenge, and then are you actually solving that problem? The customers are constantly looking for or trying to gauge, do the designers actually understand my problem? And this is coming from how in depth or how involved are the ideas that I'm actually being presented. So a customer, is looking for, new ideas or new ways to solve a problem. They want to know if a designer, is actually understanding that problem and presenting, real solutions that could actually work for them. The next big thing, and this is kind of what Adam was touching on earlier, is do the designs match my brand? So this is obviously a big concern for any client, is they want consistency across, anything that they produce, that it follows their brand guidelines. Some clients have, super robust brand guidelines that are, getting really specific about UI and, usage of that UI. Obviously that's where it becomes extremely important to understand those guidelines and also follow them in your design challenges. Some clients have, very open guidelines where we're really just looking at, fonts and colors. So regardless of kind of the depth of their branding, it's extremely important to make sure we're actually following that. And then the last piece, is making sure that the user flows actually make sense. So does the user flow through the application in a, a logical way? Do those user flows actually make sense for the target user? So if we're, designing an app for, a millennial that's, a shopping app, that experience is going to be very different from, a business executive. So it's making sure that you understand, the target user, and you're designing an experience that makes sense for them.
So a key thing that I like to talk about and also talk and explain to customers is the difference between concept design and production design. And this is very critical to the way we do design at Topcoder. So a lot of the times customers are coming to us and they say, I want a mobile app or like a responsive app, and they're thinking production design. They're thinking, I just need to get this done. But throughout that process, they realize that they're actually looking for new ideas and new concepts, new presentations, which is one of the reasons why they're trying crowdsourcing. So this is why we've designated the terminology around specific challenges as concept design. So this is leveraging your collective design knowledge, your potential view on the problem and solving this problem, and leveraging that to showcase many different concepts to a customer. So the idea here is it's open. We obviously have challenge requirements, but the idea is that we're looking for your approach to solving the problem. Maybe the branding requirements may be a little more loose. We may not have a brand, and we may be suggesting specific colors or schemes, or in the beginning of the challenge, we may also be leaving that open because the customer is open to different colors. And then we're typically in a concept design challenge, we're suggesting screens and functionality, leaving it open to your interpretation for you to provide to us what you think about what you think the solve for that particular problem is. We set this up this way because it also helps the customer understand what they're judging or what their criteria for reviewing your designs is. So this allows for things to be a little more loose. This allows for them to absorb and understand your ideas a little easier because it's not as rigid. And it also allows them to be open for innovation within their team. The power of the concept design at Topcoder is it allows a customer and allows their team to explore things that they haven't thought about. It's allowing you, a designer that is not part of their business, not part of their domain, to provide new thoughts and new ideas into their business that they hadn't thought about. So concept design at Topcoder, I think, is a very powerful thing. The other side of that is production design, where customers come in and they have their branding, they have their screens very defined, and they say, we just need to get this done. We want to get this knocked out, and we want to make sure it adheres to our branding guidelines. Production design is also the next step after a concept design challenge. The idea is that a customer has reviewed many concepts, they've picked their first, second, and third place. They would like to merge some ideas together, and now they just want to go execute on the rest of building out that application. So production design is very important at Topcoder, but we want you to realize that when you look at a design challenge, what is it you're getting involved in? What's the judging criteria? Is it loose and open, and the customer is looking for many ideas, or it's very rigid, and we want to make sure that the branding and the guidelines and everything is very very strict, and you're paying attention to that. So that's it's very, we talk to our customers about this. We talk about the idea of how important the innovation and ideation piece is, and of course how important the production piece is. And Trevor and I spend a lot of time up front asking a customer what is the criteria that they're looking for. How are they going to judge? Because we want to make sure they're looking at your designs through the correct lens. Okay. So here is an example of a concept design challenge that we ran. So this was we ran this as part of a RUX challenge, so Rapid User Experience Design Challenge, at a conference that we were attending. And this was a challenge, a mobile application focused in on employees of a well-known company being able to go out and look at their brand out there in the wild and being able to capture, is their brand being treated properly? So this is not a single designer. This is many designer screens and different concepts around, is there a chatbot experience as the customer engages, or as the employee engages in the application? What is the initial dashboard experience? How does the camera work? And how do I capture that proof of the brand being misused out there in the marketplace? Different designs around gamification, different ideas around how does the application detect where I am? So is it using GPS and it allows me to know that there's a store nearby that I can go ahead and check on things? So a lot of different concepts, and a lot of these concepts were not part of the original challenge. The challenge was, hey, we want to have this internal employee application that we want to be able to go out and take pictures of cereal boxes that might be damaged on the store. So the idea is that you and your collective different concepts and ideas around design and how the UI UX of this mobile application might work brought many different ideas to the customer. And then, of course, they were very, the outcome of this, they were very excited by the different ideas. And this allows them to also drive requirements and things that they hadn't thought about. So very, very cool outcome on this one. And then the next one was one of our first challenges, actually exploring the iPhone 10 and the interface and Apple HIG around the iPhone 10. But this is another very well-known company where they were looking to use an internal, they have what they call an employee toolkit. So the idea is that as an employee, I have this application I can pull up, I can do some of my HR, human resource type features, but then I also have all these tools that help me with my day-to-day job. I can look for products, I can look for things, look for pricing. And so here's a variety of different ideas, once again, exploring what's the UI and UX potential of this toolkit, and what's the dashboard, what's the profile, what's the metrics, analytics. If we happen to bring in cognitive, what's the kind of more intuitive experience that may actually provide. So these are all things that you as the community brought to the table and brought into the challenge and helped show this customer many different views and potential new requirements that they could add into their application. We're going backwards. Okay, and then Trevor, if you want to talk about these other ones.
Yeah. So this is another example of a concept design. So this was all about kind of rethinking a kind of user chat slash helpline. So they kind of wanted to explore what would it look like if we merged, video chat with more of like a Slack chat interface mixed with like a calendar application and a way to access my files and my contacts. So kind of a catch-all application that was meant to serve internal employees of a large enterprise client. So obviously the requirements are extremely loose. In this case, we kind of knew what the base functionality would be, or at least what the end result could be. But as far as how that was actually designed or what were the specific features, those are things that we left more or less completely up to the design community. So this is looking at it from kind of a responsive use case as well. So how does that experience translate from desktop to mobile to tablet? How does multi-chat video work? How does more of a Slack chat interface look like, and what are the functionality pieces around that? So this was definitely an extremely open-ended challenge, but we got some great results, some great ideas. And that's ultimately, what the client was looking for. They were looking for, how could this actually look? Because they had no idea other than just a series of catch-all requirements. And then so on the other side of that is another example of production design, and this is very specific. So the client came to us with very specific branding. They already had existing websites and applications that this new website needed to tie into that and feel a part of the same family. So they had very specific requirements around kind of branding and UI, but they also had very specific requirements around content itself. So they already had a good idea of what the content was, generally how the user flow should be, along with some initial kind of wireframes and things that the client was already thinking about as far as layout or how the content could be treated. They more or less just needed a really skilled set of designers to kind of put all the pieces together. So take their branding, take their content, take their existing examples as input, and design a cohesive experience. So less of kind of art of the possible and exploring new ideas, and more of just producing a really great website with good layout and good user experience. All right, so we're gonna switch gears a little bit and talk to our one of our favorite designers and co-pilots, Alex. So, Alex, welcome.
Thank you, Trevor.
Awesome. So we wanted to get you on our first workshop Wednesday. So this workshop is all around a kind of intro to Topcoder, more specific to kind of new members, and how they can get started at Topcoder, how they can kind of learn. So just wanted to kind of hear about how did you get started as a designer, not necessarily at Topcoder, but just kind of your initial design experience.
Well, I have been involved with design almost my entire life, but I took this as a profession since I was in college. Actually, my first professional jobs as a designer were related to web design, front-end development. But I always had the curiosity about drawing and painting, so I can say that design has been a very important element in my whole life.
Nice. So how did that transition you into actually joining Topcoder and starting to participate on challenges?
Well, I first met Topcoder thanks to Luis Millán, maestro in Topcoder, back in 2009. We were workmates in a web design company in Venezuela, where he was actually my boss. I joined in that time, but I never compete until 2014. I saw some posts from Luis on Facebook about TCO. So I was curious about the TCO event and how to qualify. So I joined a challenge, and I remember I won third place in my first challenge ever. So that was like adrenaline to me. Actually, it was like my first love with Topcoder.
Nice. That's great. So yeah, so kind of looking at your stats at Topcoder. So you mentioned you joined in 2009. You've participated in almost 200 challenges since then, including 50 first place wins. And then more recently, you've kind of transitioned into more of a co-pilot role, as well as continuing to design, but have co-piloted 81 challenges and have 100% fulfillment rate. So definitely, impressive stats as a member, but with that, not to have you give away your secrets, but how do you approach a design challenge? What sort of process advice or anything that you could offer to maybe a new member?
Okay, I'm not going to reveal my secret sauce. No, it's okay. Well, honestly, I don't used to compete a lot these days, but when I do it, I try to compete on those challenges that have fast deadlines, like Rocks and Logs challenge. I'm actually a big fan of Logs challenge because many of them are on open canvas, where we have free room to think out of the box and provide some great ideas. So when I compete, what I do is to take the first day only for documentation, okay? Reading the specs, asking questions in forums, researching about any particular technology needed on the challenge, like data visualization, cognitive features, or artificial intelligence as well. Once I have all the ideas clear in my mind, I'm ready to design. And what I usually do is to start designing directly on Photoshop without making any handmade sketches or wireframes. As this kind of challenge, Logs and Rocks, are very fast and have tight deadlines, I like to start putting all the ideas together and concepts really fast. So I start to designing directly in Photoshop because I like to see how the design is turning, if it is going on the right way or not.
Right. Yep. No, that totally makes sense. Yeah. And you've had some great success in a lot of our Rucks and Lux challenges. And we see a lot of members, join specifically in those types of challenges because of the things that you just mentioned. They like to work fast like that. It's most of the Ruxes and Lux challenges are definitely concept driven and allow you to really think outside the box. So more recently, you've kind of switched over to more of a copilot role. What was kind of the want or the desire to kind of make that transition?
Okay. Well, Copilot was the element that allowed me to quit my office work and become a full-time Topcoder member. I was looking for an opportunity like that before, so when I have the chance, I didn't hesitate. Also, I do like the project management process a lot, so I did some tasks related to this on my previous work. And being a copilot gave me the chance to improve these skills and learn a lot of things more in the process.
That's great. So yeah, so you're full-time at Topcoder now.
Yes.
So that's great. So how do you think, as a co-pilot, how do you think being such a long-time design competitor has helped you kind of understand, or at least be, more successful as a design co-pilot, since you've been on kind of both sides of a competition now?
Well, I do like design a lot. It's something that I really enjoy, but Copilots is a totally different thing. I see it as my real work. Actually, it is, and I take this seriously with responsibility. Of course, that being an active competitor as a designer allowed me to understand more the whole process. So I try to write specs that are simple and clear for everyone. When I'm writing a challenge specification, I make questions to myself like, is this a challenge where I will compete? Is this challenge clear enough? So I understand when members request for an extension or ask for better supporting documents like branding or high definition logos. So I try to be supportive as much as I can.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So understanding what a client or what a designer would need, since you've been on that side of it as well. So yes, it's definitely something that we've noticed as admins as well, is being able to identify those things that, even us, may not think of right away or miss. So definitely a great perspective from your end. And then lastly, since we are kind of basing this whole workshop around, new members or members just getting started, what kind of advice would you give to a new member at Topcoder that's just starting out?
That is a very interesting question. I will say that never give up. Never. I really know this. You will lose some challenge, maybe a lot, maybe, but you will improve on every new challenge you compete. When I see my design from 5 years ago and I see my last designs, I'm really proud and amazed at how I have improved across all these years. Always read your feedback and the overall feedback as well. Read and study a lot, and always be humble and grateful with everyone. But basically, never give up, never.
Nice. No, that's such great advice. So yeah, so just wanted to kind of take a little bit of a trip down memory lane for any new members and kind of aspiring members. So we dug back into the Topcoder Challenge archives and pulled out your first design win ever, which was back in December 2014. So this was a website design for Royal Canine, which is a dog food brand. I believe just in the US, but it might be international as well. But yeah, do you remember this challenge and kind of
yes, I do remember, especially because that was the first time I ever won a first place.
yeah. No, it's pretty interesting going back through.
That was a pretty big rush to get that first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
It took me like 4 months to get the first placement.
Okay.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then more recently, so this was actually a Rux challenge for Macy's, which is a big clothing retailer or department store based out of New York. But this was in January 2018, and this was definitely an impressive win. This by and large stood out, not only to us, but to the client as well. So, kind of walk us through, the mindset of designing this. I know it's a pretty interesting story just from kind of talking to you about it.
Yes, well, actually, this design was very fun to me because it was a fashion-related design. So my wife, she's a fashionist. She loves fashion. She loves all things related to fashion and design. So I had a very long conversation with her. And basically, what I did was to take her experience in online shopping and put it on this design. I tried to make like a virtual magazine where she, as a consumer, could feel like comfortable while using this website.
Yeah, and that was part of the challenge itself. So Macy's was looking to, kind of redesign their homepage experience with this whole idea around personalization and how could the experience be tailored to the specific user. And so it was exploring a lot of, kind of specific tastes and, dashboards that could kind of tailor content. Yeah. So this definitely stood out as, to the client. And this kind of goes back to, some of our previous slides of what is important to the client. And I think what they really picked up on is they started to realize that you really understood the problem. You really understood you know, kind of the requirements and, you know, what the client was looking for, but also, you know, what the user or what their target user was looking for as well.
Exactly.
Great. And then this was a design that that you pulled out for me that was a little bit more of a recent challenge, but something that you were extremely proud of. So kind of just walk us through of, you know, why this was so important to you and kind of what the outcome was.
Yes, this is something that I was talking before about exploring and reading a lot the documentation, because on this particular challenge, our client was looking for some high-level data analytics in real time. So it was really hard for me to understand the whole requirement. So I read a lot about data visualization. I dedicate about 2 days only for studying about that before I start to design.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, the visuals are, you know, extremely impressive, and just kind of understanding, you know, the various levels of data and kind of how that all fits together. And then also just, you know, designing it in a really clean and easy to understand, you know, user interface. So definitely a challenge. Anytime we kind of run these data visualization challenges, you know, that's ultimately the ultimate challenge of the project itself, is how do you visualize the data, but how do you actually design a UI that's easy to understand that data. And I think this was a pretty successful example of that.
So the final result, I was really, really proud about that design.
Yeah, it looks great. So definitely something to be proud of. So yeah, so thank you so much, Alex, for joining us and sharing, you know, your expertise and your guidance, and, you know, definitely thank you for being a part of our community. So it's been great working with you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so we're gonna keep moving, and we're gonna jump into design challenges. So this being design month, we obviously have a big focus on design challenges. And so same as we did last year, we have a series of fun challenges planned throughout the month. So we'll release those at kind of various stages. So the first two are running right now. So we have a challenge called the Budsies Bring Artwork to Life. So this is a pretty unique challenge. And the idea is that this company, Budsies, will produce a kind of a plush toy or you know, doll, depending on, you know, what the artwork is. So the idea is that we want to create some kind of a mascot or something that's, you know, Topcoder themed, that we can ultimately produce an actual physical object of. So a pretty unique challenge, you know, definitely not in the norm for something that we do at Topcoder, but I think, you know, can definitely be something fun, something new to explore, and hopefully, you know, a really great group of ideas at the end. So we're going to do 10 placements. The winners will be voted on by the admins, so kind of this design team, as well as the design community themselves. So we'll kind of narrow it down, and then, you know, ultimately let the design community vote and, you know, kind of pull out their favorites. So submissions are due on the 16th, and then we will announce the winners on our last workshop Wednesday, which is on the 30th of this month. And then our second fun challenge that's running right now is a motion graphics challenge. So again, something, definitely totally different than what we normally do at Topcoder. So this is a little bit more, video and animation focused, but we're definitely not tying that to, you have to use, 3D or After Effects. We're looking at, any kind of ideas. It could be an animated GIF, using Photoshop, or, kind of whatever tool is most comfortable for you. So it's a pretty open challenge. We're more or less looking for your ideas, as well as kind of giving you an opportunity to maybe explore something new, maybe, learn or dabble into a new piece of software. So we'll definitely be, manning the forums of this and trying to answer any questions that come up. So we're doing 10 placements for this as well. So a $25 prize for placements 1 through 5, and then a Topcoder T-shirt for placements 6 through 10. So the admins are gonna vote on the winners, and then again, we'll present all of those final winners during our last workshop Wednesday. So a couple unique fun challenges that are live right now, and then we have a few more planned throughout the rest of the month. So definitely keep an eye on the challenge listings. And then customer challenges. So as always, we'll continue to have customer challenges running throughout the month. We have a few that are running currently. I kind of just pulled out a couple of highlights, but definitely make sure you're keeping an eye on the challenge listings as new challenges are added, daily. So the first two, that are jumping out are there's an iOS tablet UI design challenge. Checkpoints are due tomorrow for that, May 10th. But there's still definitely plenty of time. The checkpoint requirements are fairly straightforward, so it should be pretty easy to jump in and get started pretty quickly. And then we have a wireframe challenge that just launched last night, actually. So still plenty of time to jump in for checkpoint and ultimately finals for that. And then we have a Topcoder community Slack. So this is what we use a lot to kind of just communicate with the members. We have all of the admins in there. We have our co-pilots in there. So it's great, kind of just a community forum, outside of the regular challenge forum. So if you're not a part of that, definitely email Adam at adrock@topcoder.com, and he can get you added in. All right. So I think that's it for us.
That's it. Thanks. Thank you.
First workshop. All right. We will catch you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.